The Weapons of World War II by Matthew Andreessen. World War II. World War II started on September 1st, 1939 and lasted all the way to September 2nd, 1945. This deadly war involved over 100 million people directly, and more than 30 countries threw their entire economy's wealth into supporting the war effort. World War II was the deadliest war in human history, and between 75 to 80 million people were killed in the course of 6 years. A big part of this staggering amount of human casualties is a result of rising technology, which created new and improved deadly weapons, which made killing enemies a lot easier. Weapons ranging from new and improved tanks, like the M4 Sherman tank, more agile and dangerous aircrafts like the Avro Lancaster, self-automated missiles like the V-2 rocket, and the most deadly advancement of all, the atomic bomb, helped make World War II the deadliest war in human history. The M4 Sherman tank. There were a number of tanks deployed during World War I, but they were not to be proven very effective until World War II. During World War I, tanks were very large and cumbersome, often getting stuck in the mud and trenches, as well as suffering from mechanical difficulties. The most famous of all tanks in World War II was the M4 Sherman tank. As a result of its state-of-the-art armor, resilience, and being relatively lightweight allowed it to outclass most of the other German tanks. Even when the Germans created a heavy tank, which had more firepower than the M4 Sherman, the tank was able to remain effective because it had massive amounts of numbers on its side, and there were more reliable mechanical parts. In addition to being adaptable, the M4 was relatively cheap to produce, and thus allowed them to be mass-produced. They were also fairly easy to repair after being damaged, and this resulted in many of the damaged tanks returning to service. Avro Lancaster. A bomber is a specialized type of aircraft which attacks ground targets by dropping highly explosive bombs, missiles, or torpedoes at an enemy target to create a massive damage to anything in the explosive's range. Bombers were used slightly in World War I, and it consisted of small open-topped aircrafts with a crew of 2. The person not flying was given the task of arming and dropping bombs over the edge of the plane at enemy targets. This was very inaccurate and quite dangerous to the people flying in the plane. As World War II rolled around, technology allowed for the creation of much faster and more dangerous bombers like the Avro Lancaster. The new bomber did not require a person to throw the bombs over the edge, and instead used bomb bays to carry and drop explosives, and it could now take the largest bombs used by the RAF. This made the Lancaster a very dangerous and precise bomber. As a result of being a near-perfect flying machine, the Lancaster was fast and agile for a bomber of its size, and was more than a match for any other enemy fighters. The V-2 rocket. As time progressed, technology increased and resulted in more dangerous and deadly weapons than were seen in the First World War. The V-2 rocket was the first ever automated long-range rocket in the world, and if launched vertically, it could travel into space, then come hurtling down on its target. As a result of this technological terror, armies could remain in relative safety and send a rocket to obliterate an enemy position. Traveling at speeds up to 5,760 kilometers an hour, these rockets were almost impossible to shoot down, and when they impacted something, they could hurl 3,000 tons of material in the air and create a crater 20 meters wide. It was a very effective and lethal way to damage an enemy without having to designate troops to the area. The atomic bomb. Perhaps the most dangerous and deadly weapon of all time was the creation of the atomic bomb. The atomic bomb was initially created under the name of the Manhattan Project by the United States of America around 1947, and it had such terrible power and danger that Britain labeled it as morally unacceptable. The impact this advancement of technology gave was that it could save a nation a lot of time and troops if they wanted to invade a place, because a single fighter could carry this weapon and effectively obliterate a city. It could also destroy thousands of lives in one single stroke. The very presence of this weapon could make one country hesitant to attack another because of what damage the bomb could inflict on them and the world. The atomic bomb continued. The first nuclear bomb to be tested released 10 million tons of TNT when it exploded, enough to level entire cities and kill off thousands of people. But the initial explosion would not have been the only thing which devastated the people. The mass amounts of radiation which would permeate everything would wreak havoc for years to come, affecting not just the population, but the wildlife and natural habitats. We should constantly remind ourselves that just because we have technology does not mean we should use it all the time. Conclusion. As wars have progressed and as technology has become more advanced, the weapons used in these wars have become more deadly, accurate, and less dangerous to the user. What sort of technological terror will the future hold? As the next generation, we must learn from history to ensure no more world wars erupt, because they will only become more deadly to us and our environment, affecting not just us, but the globe. We're excited. Thank you.